Barcelona is a city built for movement, sunlight on the Mediterranean, music drifting through narrow streets, and millions of visitors gathering along La Rambla. But on a summer afternoon in 2017, one of Europe's most recognizable promenades became a place of terror. A white van entered the pedestrian area and drove into the crowd, leaving 16 people dead across 2 connected attacks and more than 100 injured. Behind the headlines was a chain of planning, warning signs, panic, courage, and unanswered grief. This is the story of the Barcelona attacks of August 2017. Before we continue, please remember to comment, like, share, and subscribe so you do not miss future episodes of the Calendar of Crime. It was Thursday, the 17th of August 2017. La Rambla was alive with its usual mixture of residents, tourists, street performers, market stalls, restaurants, and families. The boulevard runs through the heart of Barcelona from Plaça de Catalunya toward the waterfront. It is wide, busy, and largely open to pedestrians, which is part of what makes it so inviting, and part of what made the attack so difficult to anticipate. During the afternoon, a rented white van was driven onto the pedestrian section, near the center of La Rambla. The driver did not appear to be trying to follow the road. Instead, the vehicle moved through the crowd, striking people as it traveled along the promenade. In seconds, an ordinary holiday scene became confusion and panic. People ran into shops and restaurants, searched for loved ones, and tried to help those who had fallen. The first confirmed death toll was reported as 13. The victims came from different countries and backgrounds, reflecting the international character of Barcelona itself. Many others were injured, some seriously. The attack was not only an assault on individuals, it also shattered the sense of safety associated with a place where people gathered to enjoy a city that seemed open to everyone. The van eventually stopped near the Liceo area. The attacker fled on foot, disappearing into the surrounding streets. Early reports were incomplete and contradictory, as they often are in the first hours after a major emergency. Police had to secure the scene, identify victims, treat the injured, and determine whether the attacker had acted alone or whether a larger operation was still unfolding. The investigation quickly widened beyond La Rambla. 2 people were arrested, but neither was initially identified as the driver. Attention turned to a wider group connected to the town of Ripoll in Catalonia. Investigators also examined an explosion the previous night at a house in Alcanar, southwest of Barcelona. The blast killed 1 person and later became a critical clue. The house appeared to have been used by members of the group while they prepared materials for a much larger attack. The emerging picture was of a cell whose plans had been disrupted by the Alcanar explosion. After that setback, investigators believed the group changed direction and turned to vehicles as weapons. That change made the plot harder to detect. A rented van required no specialist equipment, and an attack in a crowded public space could be carried out quickly. But the violence did not end in Barcelona. In the early hours of the 18th of August, a vehicle attack took place in the coastal town of Cambrils, around 100 kilometers southwest of the city. A car drove into people, and a police officer was injured. Several attackers carried knives and wore what appeared to be explosive belts, although the devices were later found to be fake. Police shot and killed 5 attackers at the scene. 1 civilian was killed in Cambrils, adding to the death toll from the previous day's attack. The 2 incidents were treated as part of the same terrorist operation. The so-called Islamic State claimed responsibility, but the precise nature of the relationship between the attackers and the organization was a subject investigators continued to examine. The group appeared to have been inspired and directed through extremist propaganda and a local network, rather than operating as a conventional army unit. The search for the Barcelona driver continued for several days. On the 21st of August, police located and shot dead Younes Abu Yaqub near Subirats, west of Barcelona. Authorities said he was the driver who had used the van on La Rambla. Investigators also linked him to the killing of a man whose car he took while escaping the area. That additional death meant the overall toll connected to the Barcelona attack was higher than the first figures reported on the afternoon of the 17th of August. The man identified as the spiritual figure associated with the group was Abdelbaki S. Sadi, an imam from Ripoll. He had died in the Alcanar explosion, which helped explain why he was not present when the attacks took place. The investigation focused on how members of the cell had been radicalized, how they communicated, where they obtained vehicles and materials, and whether opportunities to identify the threat had been missed. In the days that followed, Spain entered a period of official mourning. Barcelona became a city of flowers, candles, messages, and silent embraces. At the same time, emergency workers, police officers, doctors, translators, shopkeepers, taxi drivers, and ordinary residents were recognized for the way they responded. People opened their businesses as temporary shelters. Strangers helped visitors who could not speak Spanish or Catalan. Hospitals treated patients from many nations. A powerful response came from the public itself. On the 26th of August, around 500,000 people joined a solidarity march through Barcelona. The message was simple: I am not afraid. It was not a claim that fear had disappeared. It was a refusal to allow violence to define the city or turn neighbors against one another. The attacks also raised difficult questions about information sharing, prevention, and the limits of modern security. La Rambla could not simply be sealed off from the public without changing the character of the city. Yet authorities across Europe were already confronting a pattern in which ordinary cars and vans could be turned into deadly weapons with little warning. The challenge was to protect crowded places while preserving the openness that made them valuable. In the years after the attacks, Spain's courts examined the roles of surviving members of the cell. 3 men were convicted in 2021 for offenses connected to the operation, although the principal attackers had already died. The convictions could not restore the lives lost or erase the injuries carried by survivors, but they established a legal record of the network and its preparation. The official memorial in Barcelona remembers 16 people killed in the attacks in Barcelona and Cambrils, and the more than 100 people injured. It also preserves the messages, flowers, and objects left by the public in the days after the tragedy. Those items show how a city processed shock, not through one voice, but through thousands of small acts of remembrance. The Barcelona attacks are often reduced to a few images: a van, a boulevard, a police cordon, a city in mourning. But the fuller story is about people. It is about victims whose names and lives deserve more attention than the actions of their killers. It is about survivors who had to recover physically and emotionally. It is about families who received news no family should ever hear. And it is about a city that chose solidarity instead of surrendering its identity. When we revisit a tragedy like Barcelona, the purpose should not be to glorify the perpetrators or reproduce their propaganda. It should be to understand what happened, remember those who were harmed, and recognize the human decisions that shaped the aftermath. History becomes meaningful when it restores the people behind the numbers. Thanks for watching. Please comment, like, share, and subscribe so you do not miss future episodes from the Calendar of Crime.